Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Hey, got a loaded show for you today, but we have to hit on controversy. The New York Liberty, congratulations, you're WNBA champions, but I don't know if I would have celebrated that way, knowing the way you were handed the championship. Also, the Vikings are only 5-1, and people are acting like the sky is falling when it comes to the quarterback position. We'll talk about all that and much more coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday morning in Minneapolis, wherever you're listening from. Hopefully you got some warm weather. Minnesota's been remarkably warm as of late. But again, today's show, we have to talk about the WNBA Championship. It's kind of taking over the world right now with some controversial plays, so we'll hit on that a little bit today and talk about what we thought about it. I watched the entire game from start to finish, and you know, some coaches are always going to talk about this, and we'll talk about this, but blaming the refs, sometimes you have to go back and look at how you could have not ended up in this situation. So I think that's going to be the first thing. And then, of course, the Vikings and the Lions. Now, people were playing around with, you know, we walked into your trap, we took over your trap, and all this stuff and all these jokes. But let's not forget, it took a field goal to beat the Vikings at the very end. And the Vikings still almost had a chance for maybe a 70-yard field goal, if not for a penalty. And so it was not the we blew Minnesota out, you know, and I think the Lions even know that leaving the building that they could have easily lost that game. You know, you convert the 3rd and 4. So we'll talk about that. And of course, we got the Daily 3 coming up, 3 questions, 3 minutes each at the end. And I want everybody to know, if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube, where you can find all of our videos, all of our shows, instant postcasts after every single game from all of our insiders. And you can also just hit that follow button. So when you go to YouTube, make sure you hit this follow button or subscribe button from your phone, and then you get all updates whenever we go live. But I want everybody to know also, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, Sam, as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom, Vikings Lions, we know what happened. Like they lost the game. There's nothing stopping that from happening. They lost. We can't change it. We can't say it didn't happen. But here's one thing I take away from this game, Sam. And I know you and I and Luke talked about this on the postcast. For the Vikings and the Lions should not feel like they just walked in and absolutely destroyed the Vikings. The Vikings had that game in hand. The Vikings had control of the game, and then all of a sudden, like, there was little moments here and there where you just felt like, what is going on? The injury first to Montgomery. When Gibbs came in, different pace back, different. Like, Montgomery ended up with 9 carries, 31 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs probably doesn't get the 15 carries and 116 yards and 2 touchdowns if Montgomery doesn't get hurt. Because if you think about that, Montgomery had just had a run, just got stopped. He probably stays in for that next series. They probably do nothing, and he stays in for a little bit longer. Maybe Gibbs comes in later, but a hurt Montgomery changes the mindset of the coaches. We got to go to Gibbs. And Gibbs, as soon as he got a chance, he came out the gate smoking, and it just looked like a different change of pace. And so for that to happen, you got to sit back and look at, why can't the Vikings stop the run? And you look at, like, their run game and all the other stuff, and that's what's questionable at best. I am very concerned with their lack or inability to stop the run against certain teams, and then even just stop the pass. Like, it just feels like they're a bend but don't break. We know that. They're living on the big play, the turnover or the sack, or versus just playing defense and forcing the team to matriculate down the field. It almost feels like Brian Flores only has one gear, and it's full speed, full head of steam, and that's all he can do. But Sam, even in this loss, I think this is the best time to lose because if you look at the rest of the season and the next couple of games, the Vikings can win all like the next 4 or 5 games. I mean, you think about the Rams, you got the Bears in there, you got the Jaguars, you got the Colts. In my opinion, those are all winnable games. And so that's why I think losing to the Lions and the way they lost, it wasn't like a blowout. The way they lost was like, we got to button up some things here and there. We could easily still be undefeated. But you need that loss because what you don't want is for a fat cat to get slaughtered because everybody's like, oh, they went 6-0 in this year and they didn't make the playoffs. They went 5-0 in this season, and then everything fell apart. Now they're 5-1. We can stop talking about I can't find their first loss. We can stop talking about history might be made. Now they can relax and go back and play some more football the next 4 to 5 weeks. And who knows? They might be 8-1 or 9-1 or 10-1. I mean, we really don't know what we're going to get out of this team until maybe, and it's crazy, but they might run the table until they have to face the Lions again. But at that point, I think the Lions are going to maybe fall off to a team or two because of the way they're built and the way some teams are willing to let Jared Goff sit back in the pocket and make his own mistakes versus giving them easy reads and easy like hot routes to be able to hit the guys and living by the sack. But I don't know, Sam, living by the, turnover. But what were your, kind of thoughts? I know we talked about it on the postcast.
Yeah.
What is your reaction to that game?
Yeah, precisely what you're talking about. I said this after the first 5 games, that you can't always assume that teams are going to throw you the ball in the red zone, that teams are going to get sacked out of field goal range, that teams are going to go for it on 4th down and miss by the goal line. A lot of that stuff contributed to the Vikings' hot start. They've been very clutch. When teams drive the field, they bear down, they get the stop, they get the takeaway they need. Didn't happen in this game. The Lions drove down the field 4 consecutive times, scored TDs, couldn't even hold them to field goals. And when they needed to, final 2 minutes, they drive down, get into field goal range, basically take knees to set up the game-winning kick. So the Vikings didn't come up with that big play, and that's a dangerous life to live defensively when teams move the ball on you that consistently and you're hoping for kind of the splash play to bail you out. It's not always going to happen. And the Vikings, I think, were fortunate to be in this game the way they were after kind of the way their defense got shredded 4 consecutive drives. To their credit, came up with the fumble recovery touchdown. Ivan Pace to the house. Awesome moment. How cool was that? And then you even got the stop you needed, Ron. You got the stop. You had the ball. 2 first downs, and you win that football game. The 3rd and 4 is what I'm thinking about. And Ron, I'd like your take too. It seemed like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson were a little bunched up on that side of the field. Do you think there was something amiss with the way that play was executed? And the throw wasn't great either. The throw was high, but there were a lot of bodies in that area of the field. What did you think of that play?
Yeah, I'm actually going to probably watch that. I think the film today's Tuesday, so the film should be loaded. I haven't gone on there yet because I know I got to pick my what's it called? Rams plays. Sorry, I couldn't think of the team. I had to pick my Rams plays. And also my week sped up. I was supposed to get my plays in yesterday, and I've been battling like a little bit of I don't know what it is. Like I'm getting like these weird it's like inner ear thing maybe because I'm getting dizzy at night sometimes, and so I'm having to like sleep
vertigo
on my side or sitting up. Yeah, it's maybe a little small bout of vertigo, a little nausea. So I didn't get to do it yesterday, but I'm gonna do it today. And so even for the show, like I'm battling through, like sitting up straight for long periods of time. For some reason, it just makes me feel a little woozy. But when I'm watching the film, that's the one thing I want to see because there's something that was off. And Kevin O'Connell, if you hear his statement about the play, he said, if we had a lane to throw to Justin Jefferson, that's a completion. So by him saying that, he's not throwing anybody under the bus, but I feel like there should have been a lane, which means Addison probably ran the wrong route or he went too far. Like he should have maybe hooked up, like maybe on the hash, and then Justin Jefferson keeps going past him, and the hook holds that backside defender. So, or he's too deep. Like he should have maybe run it a little bit more shallow and then sat. But I think because he said if there's a lane, he said we should have had a lane to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. And so by saying we should have had a lane to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, I feel like something was off. Like I feel like there was, I don't know whose fault it was. And Kevin O'Connell's not a guy to throw people under the bus, but just something seemed off to me. And so right away when I saw the highlight, when I saw the play again, I was like, yeah, something was off there. But you brought up a good point about the red zone and the number of passes versus the number of runs and so on and so forth. And you look at historically this season, the Minnesota Vikings in the red zone have only faced 19 total rushes. 19. So teams aren't running the ball on them when they hit that red zone. And so I think you're right. I think when everybody gets in the red zone, the mindset is what's going to happen, or what's going on, or what's the next play, or what do we have next? And it's always next. And when you think about next play, your whole thought process is, well, you know what? Next play is going to be this. And so you have to kind of decide as a coach, you have to kind of put the personnel out there to say, are they going to run or they pass? If you don't have the bodies to stop the run, you are going to be susceptible to the run. I don't know if you watched any of the Lamar Jackson game last night versus the Bucs. There was a lot of big Derrick Henry runs. The toughest thing for teams to do versus Lamar Jackson is facing Lamar Jackson in the red zone because he's a pass run threat. But here's where I look at this last game versus for the Vikings versus the Lions. And same thing, looking at red zone numbers of rush to pass. The Lions in the red zone only ran the ball 3 times. They weren't in the red zone a lot. There was only 7 red zone plays. 3 times they rushed the ball. 0 passes in the Lions, like when the Lions were in there from their 20 to the 1 yard line is kind of how I do it. Some people do 25. I do 20 to the first. I could do 25, but they didn't face a lot of red zone plays. And I think that's the other part about the Lions is like when they were in the red zone, they ran the ball every single time. They were like, look, we're not gonna we're not here for a lot. Let's do what we do best. And they ran the ball. And so for the Vikings to not face a pass in the red zone was very telling to what the Lions thought of the Vikings run defense. The fact that they didn't even attempt to throw the ball. And it was like, look, we're just going to run it. If we're inside the 20, we're just running it down their throat. And then other than that, all the other touchdowns were explosives. They were getting them further out. So that's where the Vikings have to kind of, like they got to eliminate the explosive plays, and that's where I think that was a big part of it. We know Stephon Gilmore fell in the one. We know the other one, again, Stephon Gilmore one-on-one to Khalif Raymond. I kind of said that. I felt like on third down, they identified Khalif Raymond on Gilmore is a mismatch, not for skill level, but for play type. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we know Stephon Gilmore is good at. Let's do the opposite. Let's not let him be able to cover and sit. Like, let's make him chase. And at his current age and current top-end speed, chasing a guy with the speed of Khalif Raymond, because even if Stephon Gilmore doesn't fall in that play and he stays, I still think I don't know if it's a touchdown, but I still think it's going to be it might be, because he would have been trailing them, and then that same block on Metellus would have happened, and Gilmore would have had to catch up to a guy running full speed across the field. Like, I still don't think anything would have happened differently because of how far Gilmore was playing off, and like his first instinct was not give up the slot fade. I think he was thinking slot go because he kind of backed up, and he's like, oh crap, and the guy ran over, and as he planted, he just kept, like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know if a turf monster got him. I don't know if a Halloween ghost was out there, but something didn't look right. He kind of stumbled back, and then we have the touchdown. The last thing about this too, and people say like the chess match between Ben Johnson and Brian Flores, and then Aaron Glenn and Kevin O'Connell, and it was kind of like a 4D chess match. It was both sides had to figure out what plays to run, when to run them, what to do. What you notice is Justin Jefferson, even when he's covered one-on-one, he's wide open. Like he is legit. He makes the plays. It looks like the Lions also took heed to what the Jets had done, where if you notice, Sauce Gardner and Reed were basically holding the receivers, like, give up the 5-yard penalty. If you feel like you have nothing coming, grab him. Give up the 5-yard penalty, and we'll live to fight another day. It didn't work for the Jets. It worked for the Lions. The Lions got away with some. I mean, if you go back and watch some of that, you see some Justin Jefferson getting grabbed. You see some Addison getting grabbed. You see them looking, expecting some type of flag, and the refs just kind of let them play out. They're like, look, like this is a big boy matchup. We're not going to call it. I think Sauce Gardner too, his arms being so long, he wasn't as tight. Like the Lions were smart with theirs. They didn't do it if they were far away. they would get tight early and grab quick and then let go. And like, if I can hold you for a second, I'm gonna let go. And now you got to run your route. Refs were letting that play out. And the Vikings receivers, you could tell, were getting a little frustrated because, they were running and then they would slow down and they're not being grabbed anymore. So you have to keep fighting for the ref to see the grab. And so I think they didn't want it to come down to flags. Because I think somebody said that crew threw the least amount of pass interference penalties for the season so far. They had thrown the least amount of pass interference penalties. And so what I've learned too about head coaches is they get that stat sheet. They get that info because they have it. And they even in facilities, coaches that have like a big board or they have a meeting, they put that stuff on the big board for guys to see them in meetings. Like, hey, here's our ref crew this weekend, fellas. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to talk back. You don't want to celebrate. You don't want, because they know this crew here has thrown more excessive celebration flags. This crew here has thrown more personal fouls. This crew here has thrown more roughing the passer. So be careful when you're, hitting the quarterback. You got to kind of make sure you roll off of them. You got to make sure you don't drive them to the ground. All that stuff is being told to the players just as a heads up of look, these guys like to look for this stuff because Ivan Pace is roughing the passer. I think it's BS. If I'm getting hit or pushed forward, I can't control the at what angle I'm going to end up. And he was running over a block and then leaped, and they're like, oh yeah, you went after his knees. It's he wasn't trying to. He got hit. So I think with all that said, the end of the day, again, it's the best time to lose. It's the best team to lose to because you're losing to a potential Super Bowl winner. I mean, the Lions have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I think they can beat the Chiefs. I think they could beat the Bills. Who else in the AFC do we think? The Ravens maybe could make it? I don't really know who we think in the AFC can make it. I know the Chiefs are the front runner, but could the Ravens get there? We know it's not the Chargers, but could it be the Ravens? It's not the Bengals. They have no shot. But yeah, Bills, Ravens, Chiefs. I feel
Texans.
Texans, I guess. I think the Lions could beat all those teams. I think the Lions could win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so the Vikings lost to the potential Super Bowl champs. They could bring a championship back to Detroit, which would be great for my hometown city. Not gonna lie, would be fun to see because for so many years, even though it sucked because everybody's waiting for a Lions championship, I'm Vikings fans are waiting for that too. Vikings fans are can we get one before I die? And Lions fans, though, I feel have been through a little bit worse. They've had some terrible teams. The 0-16 team, they've had some football purgatory. They've had to live through. The Barry Sanders retirement, the Calvin Johnson retirement. There's a lot of early retirement stuff where they're wait, what? Where are you going? The Matthew Stafford trade, and now it's paying off because when they traded Stafford, everybody was oh, woe was me. Why are we getting Jared Goff? The guy's not good. He wasn't good for the Rams don't want him. Why do we want him? Well, now you see why. Jared Goff was good. He just didn't fit what the Rams wanted. He fits what the Lions want to do, which is we don't want to put too much on your plate. But if we need to, we need you to be able to do it. So I think this is the best time to lose and the best team to lose too. And the way they lost by 3 with all the mistakes, all the penalties. Kevin O'Connell can look back at all that and say, you know what, we lost, but we aren't as bad as, it wasn't as bad. You look at first downs, Lions have that. You look at time of possession. The Vikings actually had the ball more. Third downs, they were pretty much even. Net yards, even. Offensive plays, even. Average yards per play, even. The Vikings have the edge 0.4, but basically even. Rush net yards, 5-yard difference. Everything was past net yards, 3-yard difference. Penalties, both had 8. The Vikings had 10 more yards and penalties. Turnovers, both had 1. Punts, 3 and 4. TDs, 4 and 3. Field goals, 1 for 1, 3 for 3. So the only thing the Vikings did more was call more timeouts. The Lions left the game with 1 timeout. I'm glad it wasn't a petty moment either where, Dan Campbell called a stupid timeout or something. And he was I'm leaving with the win, and I wanted to leave the timeouts in Minnesota. Something stupid. But yeah,
Who did that? Was that Ferentz?
Yeah, that's Kirk Ferentz. Yeah, he had the game in hand, and he kept calling a timeout for no reason. The game was over. There was no reason to call a timeout. I think something happened. I think PJ called a timeout, and Iowa took it personal. And I have to go back and remember, but Iowa took it personal or something.
Petty.
as if PJ called a timeout, or maybe PJ made a comment the year before when they took the pig. I can't remember, but yeah, he was like, we're taking the pig and leaving the timeouts. And so, yeah, it was some boos because he kept calling timeout for no reason. It wasn't necessary. But it is what it is. If you want to stop Petty, win the game. So yeah, but when you look at this, like Sam, it was even down. Like if you were to see all this and say who won the game, the only reason I would if I didn't see the touchdown, or if I didn't see the if I didn't see the touchdown field goal, because that's going to tell me the answer, and I looked at everything else, only reason I would lean towards the Lions is because they have the edge by yards and first downs. But time of possession, I would say, well, maybe this is a trick question. Offensive plays, it's only four play difference. I would say maybe this is a trick question. I'd say I don't know who won, and you wouldn't, because it was a 1-point game. So I think this is, like I said, it was not a bad loss, as bad as people felt on Sunday. It's you're still 5-1 Vikings, so you're still second place in the NFC North. You still are one of the top teams in the NFC. You're still in the playoffs. Like, everything is still fine. So, I mean, right now there's no more undefeated teams in the NFC North. The Lions, though, are they number one in the NFC North as a whole now? Like, I didn't even think about that.
And the NFC or the NFC North. So they're number one in both. They're number one in the conference because they have the tie, and Minnesota's 2 because they have the tiebreaker. But in the playoff picture, Minnesota actually drops to 5th, right?
So, because of the each division. I hate that. That's so stupid. Because like the Falcons at 4-3, the Seahawks at 4-3, Commanders, I get it 5-2 because it's still, but like to be 5-1 and to be 5th, that's so dumb. And in that case though, they would play. What seed would they play? Would they play the 2 seed? No, they play the 4 seed. So they would play the Falcons.
Oh, buckle
they
up.
Would technically Falcons and Seahawks are tied. I don't know who has the tiebreaker. But I think they would. Let me see.
The Seahawks do because they squashed Atlanta on Sunday. So they have a tiebreaker.
So then Seahawks would be 3, Falcons would be 4. Yeah. So Vikings would play Kirk Cousins in the playoffs. Like that would, now imagine that story. Like now, okay. I'm not one for conspiracy. I'm not one for script writers. But could you imagine that?
That's the WNBA segment.
That is WNBA. Could you imagine that though? Like if that were to keep playing out this way, and then the Vikings have to travel with a better record, have to travel to Atlanta to walk into Kirk Cousins' trap and take over his trap. Like that would be, or Kirk Cousins throw for 500 yards on the Vikings, and then all the Vikings fans, because Vikings fans are waiting for this moment too. They're like this game, him traveling to Minnesota too. So we'll get to see that anyway. Yeah. But like it could still happen in the playoffs, because if the Vikings can't find a way to overtake the Lions and they stay in that 5th spot, and the Falcons stay in the 4th spot, regardless if the Vikings beat them or not, it still doesn't matter. And they have to travel to Atlanta, which is not a bad place to travel to in January anyway. Like warm weather, nice, indoor facility. So it's not like you're going to Detroit where it's cold and then you have to go into an indoor stadium and your body feels cold. Like Atlanta's going to have decent weather for the playoffs, and then they're in an indoor stadium. So it kind of fits the Vikings, what they do anyway, what they do well. Also, looking at the playoff teams, quote unquote, that they would have to go through in the NFL, the only potential cold place would be the Commander. I mean, I guess as far as top teams, I guess Seahawks could get kind of, but it doesn't really get cold in Seattle. Washington could be a little cold, but the Lions are indoor. Falcons are indoors. The Buccaneers is warm. Vikings could have Cardinals in Arizona. The Vikings might have, no matter where they go, might be good weather playoffs this year. And for other teams too, they're looking at Minnesota like, well, Minnesota's indoors. Even if it's cold, we get to play inside. But we got to get to that conspiracy, because I do want to make sure we spend enough time on that, because this is kind of it's taken over and it's kind of true. And the WNBA might have to come out with a story, but there's so many things that point towards conspiracy that we have to talk about. And we'll do that after word from our sponsors.
We are brought to you today by Game Time. It's the best way to get tickets in your area. If it's the Twin Cities, you can get tickets to the XL Energy Center. Minnesota Wild are now in action. They're on a road trip right now, but when they return, they might still be undefeated in regulation games. They're off to a really good start. Get tickets to the XL Center. You got Gophers basketball starting up, Williams Arena. Game Time Picks has the curation that makes it easy to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They filter out the fluff and show you just the great deals. Toggle on the all-in pricing so there's no hidden fees. Get panoramic views from your seat and the lowest price guarantee where Game Time credits you 110% of the difference if you find better seats. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Well, for those that fell asleep, I know in NFL was going, so we were kind of going back and forth between both games. We had family in town, we had friends over, and so we had a little JD Hoyt's, but homemade buddy bowl. I don't know if you ever had that, Sam, but it's like rice and beans with chicken, tomato paste, and then you put that in the deal. You get the rice nice and done. You put it in the oven, put cheese over the top, and then you have catfish, shrimp, scallops, and chicken on the side, and you kind of can put whatever meat you want on top of the rice, and it becomes like a nice little bowl. And so we did that, and we watched both games. We had the football game going on, then we had the basketball game. Then it kind of like, for those that wanted to watch football, we kind of put it on like the little tablet. I saw some people with it on their phones because they wanted to keep an eye on the football and basketball at the same time. But Sam, first of all, I will say down the stretch, and I don't know if it's tiredness, but there was a lot of bad plays. Like, you can blame the ref all you want, but there were some terrible shots taken. There were some terrible passes being thrown. There was some terrible defense where it was just like not even moving your feet, just grabbing girls. And so the first one I want to bring up is Courtney Williams. She has a chance. I don't remember the score, but she's kind of one-on-one. Shot clock's kind of running down. There as a coach too, I blame the coach for part of this. If I know we're towards the end and I need some guaranteed buckets, for me not to give it to Nafisa Collier every single time in the post, and that's what they did. They gave it to their big as much as possible. One, I think they were trying to get, which they did. They got Nafisa Collier in foul trouble because they knew the refs had a easy whistle for the New York team. They were blowing it really quick for them. But when you look at Nafisa Collier coming down, she didn't get enough touches in the post. Like, you got to give her way more touches and clear it out. If they want to double her, you put some shooters around her, and then now you have an open shot. But like, creating your own shot, like, unless you're like, I mean, again, that's why Caitlin Clark is so special. Like, she creates enough separation to get her shot off. So did Diana Taurasi. So does Paige Beckers. Like, there's a handful of girls that do just enough to get their shot. Sabrina Ionescu. And there's only certain girls that can do that. Courtney Williams isn't one of them. Now, we did see her get the 4-point play. We know that. But it feels like she was reading her own headlines a little bit, trying to be too viral with her. I'm in my Birkin bag right now and blah, blah. And, I don't want to go to a Target bag, which is kind of weird to say. You play in the Target Center. Target's one of your sponsors, and you're downplaying Target bags. Even though a Target bag, we all know it's just plastic. Like, it's not like a thing like people are going to actually walk around Target bags. She didn't say I'm shopping at Target. Like, she just said Target bag. So basically, she should have just said, I don't want to go from my Birkin bag to a plastic bag. That's what she, should have said. I don't know if maybe she was giving Target some free promotion to say, I don't want to go from from a Birkin bag to a Target bag. Maybe that was a sneaky like Target shout out. That's what people don't realize. Like, a Target bag is not expensive. Target knows their bags are cheap plastic. Like, why are y'all trying to make it? Somebody's like, oh, that's not good for sponsors. It's a Target bag, first of all. So let's start there. You guys are dumb. It's not a bad thing to say Target bag. Target bag is literally disposable trash. I do not want to be a Target bag. I want to stay a nice purse that costs $4,000 to $5,000, if not more. So she was saying I was in my Birkin. She started forcing some things that weren't there. And then, especially like when you have a bigger, like that one guard for New York that was guarding her every once in a while, she's too big. So like you have no way of getting your shot off. You have no way, like, just run her around, make her tired. Because when you're taller and bigger like me, and if I had to guard a guy 5'10", 5'8", I'm tired. Like, I'm not chasing this dude all over. She should have moved more. So, but there were a lot of mistakes. Long story short, though, the commissioner wore a New York dress. I thought that was weird with the New York skyline. Like, you're supposed to be impartial. The WNBA tweeted, the trophy is right where it belongs in New York. Whoa, what? And then they deleted the tweet. And they tagged the New York Liberty. So there was some there. They talked about the ownership team buying the team like 4 or 5 years ago and how, they've done such a great job and they promised them that they would eventually have a championship. That was weird. And then let's go with the travel at the end by Stewie. Wasn't called. And then the phantom foul, which they said she was not in a legal guarding position. And that's where I drew the line. It's one thing to watch the tape and say, well, we can't make a definitive answer if she hit her arm or not. Boom, we can live with that because you can't see when her arm comes down. But I do know, I think somebody showed the other angle. It comes down, but it doesn't touch her. It misses her arm. You're allowed to swing your arm. There's nothing saying you can't swing your arm. Her body is straight up. Hands are straight up. She runs into her and then shoots the shot. Misses. Clearly, let it play out. Maybe New York gets the rebound and puts it back up and gets fouled. We don't know. But that moment there was not the moment to do it. And that felt a little forced. That felt like home cooking. I got the home crowd. I could not let the home crowd be pissed off at us. And so that's why to me it felt wrong.
Yeah. Marginal contact there. No way that's a foul. I thought the replays were clear too. And like you said, if she hit her wrist, that's one thing.
Right.
She didn't hit her wrist. We also heard the New York coach in the huddle telling her team to embellish the foul, and then ESPN cutting her mic real fast. More conspiracy fuel. Courtney Williams and yeah, Ron, I think you also have to look at yourself in the mirror in overtime. So after the bad call, you're still in overtime. You've still got 5 minutes to win this thing. I'm pretty sure the Lynx had more turnovers in overtime than they had shots, right? They had about 5 turnovers in overtime. They probably got up about 3 shots. They scored 2 points in OT. That was frustrating. And Williams in their last 3 games shot 29%. And she only had 3 assists, right? Like that. And it seemed like they kind of benched her in the second half. So the Williams factor, the sloppiness, they panicked. You can't play badly in overtime and have the world and the refs against you. Like that's a combination to lose right there. The Lynx had to play a much cleaner game to take the refs out of it. And unfortunately they didn't do that. Really, really tough to stomach though. When the free throw discrepancy, Ron, did you see this? 25-8, and Collier didn't have any on 23 shots. A lot of them were at the rim.
So, I mean, I saw that. The other thing I want to say, first of all, to let me not be a sore loser, congrats to Jonquel Jones. She was the MVP. I think a lot of people assumed there was going to be a star like Breanna Stewart or Sabrina Ionescu, but the center, literally, she just put Fee in foul trouble. She kept putting the team itself in foul trouble. She was doing everything she can. I think eventually it was just attrition of being worn down. But Alana Smith, I expected more out of her. Like, it just felt like she disappeared a little bit. Courtney Williams,
Kayla
McBride, when you think about Kayla McBride, you would expect better shots. Like some of her shots to seem like she was just throwing them up. And then Natisha Heidemann, she came in when the Courtney Williams, as you're speaking of, like Courtney Williams did look like she got benched because of whatever, like just wasn't
decision making.
Yeah, it wasn't flowing. And they brought in Natisha, and then Natisha, even for her, like that threw me off because like the one turnover when she was kind of on the side and she grabbed the ball, all she has to do is realize, one, I got an absolute long giant guarding me. Protect the ball. Like she kind of had it out like this and she's like looking around, and then every time the camera cut to her, she looked lost. Like she looked like a deer in the headlights. Like the lights were too big for her. The moment was too big for her. And she just didn't look prepared to even be in the game. I mean, in probably her mind, she probably didn't think she was going to play. She probably thought like, look, Courtney Williams is going to take us home. And then coach is like, no, I got to get you in there. And when I've seen her play like the Aces game, Natisha is like a baller. Like she can go. She goes after. She's quick. She's fast. And I think that's what the coach was thinking too. Like, look, this longer, taller player, let's put our fastest player in and see what happens. Can she stay with you? And she kind of was like a deer in the headlights. Like I just did not understand it. Like if you get a chance, if I get a chance in the championship game, coach puts me in, oh, I'm going. I'm gonna take this is my moment. This is my one shining moment to get on ESPN. And they talk about like I was the spark that she could have been the spark. Like she could have been the difference maker. She could have took her to the lane. But it was so interesting too, because every time they drove, she was long enough that if she was close, she's there. The only other thing I would nitpick would have been Nafisa Collier. So Nafisa Collier gets it on the wing. She jabs left, goes right. She's wide open by herself for a layup. And she does a jump stop to like fake and then go up, and she gets blocked from behind. I would have rather seen her fake. And then when she gets her up in the air, she jumps into her and like gets the foul and lays it up, because at that point she had her in the air. And that's the difference in some people that are like thinking that for the moment, like that's the old Kobe Bryant, I'm gonna get you up, boom, and then I'm gonna get the layup and I might get the and one. I would have liked to see that, because if you keep going forward, it doesn't allow the defender from behind to hit the ball. Also, because she doesn't want to foul you, now you have a chance to hit her and get the layup and the and one. But she kind of jumped straight up, and she should have went for, even if she doesn't try to get the foul, go forward towards the basket. She went straight up like it was a jump shot, like she was going to shoot like a little jumper off the backboard, versus like jumping at the rim for like a little, just an easy layup. And if she does that too, she doesn't get blocked, because the block literally was like at its max reach point behind her. Like if she's any more closer to the basket, that ball doesn't get blocked either. But I would have just kept going hard and taking the foul. Like they were all tired and they were not going to be able to control their body going full speed trying to close her out. I'm going to go and get the foul, because I'm not at that point. You can't worry about injury. You can't worry about taking a big hit. It is what it is. It's like a receiver coming across the middle when it matters most, like Terrell Owens when he caught his touchdown and got like absolutely killed. But that became like one of the biggest highlights in NFL, history. Like, look at Terrell Owens, and he got crushed and he still caught it, and big play, and Steve Young's running down the field. Like those are the moments that people need. The Michael Jordan, faking one way in the garden, or it might have been at home. I don't know if he was in the garden at home, but he fakes one way, comes back on Patrick Ewing. He's not pump faking. He's going up to dunk on John Starks and whoever else. I forgot whoever else was in that picture, but those moments are when, you want to take that contact. You got like LeBron, LeBron getting the alley-oop against the Celtics, and he could have easily like did the fake pump and then caught in the air, come down, lay it up. No, he's like, man, look, Jason Terry, I'm about to catch a body. Or no, it was Damon Jones, I think it was Damon Jones got caught. Damon Jones got caught because I remember they said somebody called him like, he called him on the phone like, yo, you just baptized him. But I think it was either Jason Terry or Damon Jones. It might have been Jason Terry, though. I can't remember exactly who, but I remember LeBron caught that body, and so every once in a while, you just got to run through contact and do it. We've seen Caitlin Clark get absolutely killed, and people say she's flopping. It's like, no, she's actually taking some hard hits. And early on, I think that's what the Lynx should have realized is like, look, just take the hit. Like, go take the hit, because your foul discrepancy, and maybe that's their coach. The Lynx coach told them, hey, embellish. And that's the first time we heard it. Who knows how many times she told them throughout this series to embellish the fouls, because I think she was mad about some of the earlier fouls the Lynx got that they didn't get. And so she probably was like, look, you gotta play it up for the refs. But I don't know. Before we get to the next segment, Daily 3 coming up, any final thoughts about that and moving forward for them?
Well, I thought I was going to contribute a nitpick as well. Again, after the bad foul call, I mentioned you had overtime to win it. You also had a final shot. You had 5 seconds on the clock, and you had a chance to win the championship. What'd you think of the rushed 3 by McBride right off the inbounds? Which there was so much room in the lane.
Yeah,
you didn't force them to play defense at all, and you left time on the clock, which I think they didn't take advantage of correctly. They should have called timeout. But I didn't love the shot. I would have much rather passed it to Collier and given her one post up for the championship. That would have been my ideal. I didn't love the shot.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. Like when you have a chance to win a game, I said the same thing. When I saw her just throw it up, it was almost like she thought it was 1 second left or something.
Yeah,
she just threw it up.
It was hasty.
Yeah, I'm like, and she was open, so I'm taking like one. I said that to Gabe. I'm like, just take one dribble. I'm taking one dribble. I'm taking my time. This is for the world. This is to win this is what every kid who plays basketball dreams of. They want that one shot. They played this in their backyard numerous times where they count down themselves, 3, 2, and then they shoot. Nobody shoots it at 3. Nobody's getting the ball at 3 and they throw it up. Like, it's catch it, 3, 2, and then they shoot it. 1, and they run off and everybody's screaming. They're on the floor. Like, make the best shot possible, not throw it up. The other thing that threw me off too is when you look at the way, because people were saying like, oh, like how can Breanna Stewart, how can Stewie be all excited like she deserves this championship? I don't know if y'all ever played basketball before, but basketball players lie. They don't care if they never got fouled. They're taking a foul. They call their own fouls that aren't fouls and pick up basketball. Like, basketball players, like, come on, football players too. Like, there's so many charges and quarterbacks getting, like, quarterbacks might say it eventually later, like, yeah, that wasn't a roughing the passer. But in the moment, they're clapping it up. They're happy they got the flag. Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl when he get pushed, and we're like, that's probably not a roughing the pass. Like, so much to this sports world that people don't realize. Like, nobody cares if the refs screw it up. If the refs screw it up in my favor, hey, appreciate it. I'm going to take my championship and I'm going to go home. But we got the Daily 3 coming up. This will be 3 questions, about 1.5 to 2 minutes each today. And we'll do that after word from our sponsors.
FanDuel brings us today's show. Man, I was talking about that Lynx championship bet all year, and it almost came to fruition. You would have gotten a great payout on that. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but there's still plenty of other fun to have, including NBA starting up tonight. Timberwolves and Lakers. We're going to have a postcast tonight. Want to check the line on this game. Believe the Timberwolves are favored at crypto.com arena against Bronny Braun. They're 1-point favorite. It's going to be a tight game. Check that out at FanDuel. If you have other hunches at FanDuel, you can capitalize. New customers, when you place your first $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Bet 5, get 200, whether you win or lose. And with those 200, you can do college basketball coming up. You got NBA starting tonight, NHL, college football, NFL. It's all available. Every line, every league. At America's #1 sportsbook, it's FanDuel.com. Make every moment more.
Well, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, about 2 minutes each today. Take it away, Sam.
All right. We got Gophers Maryland coming up on Saturday. Gophers coming off a bye week. We'll see if they can get a win, unlike the Vikings off of their bye. What are your early keys for the Maroon and Gold as they try to build a 3-game winning streak?
Yeah, I think the Gophers are a 4-point favorite. When you look at Maryland's, solid team coached by a solid coach in Loxley. Over the last, couple of years, he's been building, a program. In the past, Minnesota hasn't had much issue with Maryland. Nothing against Maryland. It just hasn't been great. But, when Maryland is trying to grow and get better, whereas the Gophers, they're kind of at their, like, here's where you are. Here's where you are as a team. They have their guys. They have their quarterback. And they only have him rented for 1 year. Like, he's in and out. And so when you look at Maryland, Billy Edwards Jr. is their main quarterback right now. Really, really accurate guy, 70% completion, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's not gonna, he's not letting the ball go. He's not getting rid of it. The biggest thing about Maryland, and they've been this way forever, because I spoke to the Maryland football program years ago when Joker Phillips was receivers coach. They want to have that, like, Stephon Diggs era Maryland where they're passing the ball around. Right now, they already have a 64 reception receiver in Ty Felton. And so that's what Maryland's about. Maryland is about explosive, but the one thing that the Gophers have are DBs. So that's why I think this is a Gopher game, because although Maryland does pass the ball, they do spread you out. The Gophers have the DBs to match up with them. As long as everybody stays healthy, Coy Parrish looks like he's healthy. We'll see about some of these other guys coming back from injury. But Justin Wally should be good to go. I think that's the key, is like, this is a team, and they're coming off a bye week, so I think that's even better. Guys are getting to rest and come back. I don't know if Maverick Baranowski is going to play or not. It feels like he's kind of become an afterthought of this team now with the success they've had. But I think the Gophers can pull it off and beat Maryland. But it's going to be stopping the pass. Maryland as a running team they're not great running the ball. My key for the Gophers is they have to do that. And then for the offense, you've got to get him going early. Max Brosmer has to get going early. and has to feel very confident. And like Daniel Jackson, he's got to find another weapon though. Daniel Jackson 10 catches can't happen every game because it becomes predictable. He's got to find some other weapons.
Got to have this game if you want to get to 8 wins this year, and I think they get it. I think that Maryland is like a second half comeback against USC from being winless in the Big Ten. I think the Gophers win. The Rams and Vikings play Thursday night. Quick turnaround for the Purple, and it sounds like Cooper Kupp is back for McVay, Stafford, and the Rams. How much more dangerous do the Rams seem to you if Kupp is in the mix?
Well, I mean, we know what they look like without him. They don't look great. They don't really have any true weapons. Even though they lost to the Lions, when you see that game, I don't know if you saw that, because that was the one in overtime. But Cooper Kupp, if I'm not mistaken, had like 12 to 14 catches and those over 100 yards. But like I remember somebody saying like his target, it was like 20 something targets. Like Tyler Johnson. The only reason I remember that because Tyler Johnson had a big play in that game, and the Gophers posted it. So, but I did see the actual play. He kind of ran like I don't know if it was an over, and then he just stopped his foot in the ground and cut it back. But Tyler Johnson had a big game. But Cooper Kupp makes everybody else better. And I think that's the difference. It's like all the receivers without Cooper Kupp, they don't look as good. With Cooper Kupp, they all look great. Like Puka Nacua, I don't think they're not getting him back, right?
I haven't heard anything to suggest that, so I would guess
just the Kupp. And so yeah, so he makes everybody better. But again, he's an absolute weapon. He's his security blanket. He can get him the ball at any point in any game. And you tell the difference, like 20 to 26 versus the Lions, and the Lions are a really good team. You look at them the next game against the Cardinals. Now we found out the Cardinals were a good team. They were without, they were starting to, look banged up. You were starting to wonder what's going on with this team. And then you see the Rams turn around and beat the 49ers. And then, and you're like, how'd they beat the 49ers without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua? I think they figured it out. Also, the 49ers, I mean, maybe the 49ers aren't as good as we thought they were. Because, they came into US Bank Stadium and lost, and then they just turned around and lost again. And so maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. But then the Rams losing to the Bears is where we all kind of like, without those receivers, it's tough. Like they just don't have a guy that's getting separation like him. So I think that's the key is like early on, you can see how explosive they were. As the season has gone on without them, they just lack that explosion.
Matthew Stafford, 3 touchdown passes in 6 games and 4 picks. He's got more picks than touchdowns. That passing game is going to need a lift, but they also can't really rush the ball either. I mean, the Vikings are on paper such a better team than the Rams. And again, Thursday nights are weird. Got to win this game.
Yep.
This is a right the ship kind of game to get back on track. Last one, other NFL topic. Deshaun Watson in an emotional scene towards his Achilles against the Bengals on Sunday. Question is, will Deshaun Watson be a starter again for the Browns in his career, or will he be a starter again in the NFL after he comes back?
So it's going to be tough to be a starter. It depends on how long. I mean, this is week 7. So, Kirk Cousins was able to come back week 1, and he hurt his around the same week 7, week 8. So I think possibly, but he just didn't look good, healthy. So I don't know like how you put that resume up for these first couple games, tear your Achilles, and then you come back, and then like the amount of money you might want to play, unless he just says, look, I'll take the minimum because I already got a lot of guaranteed money from the Browns if they cut him. But also the Browns add insult to injury. If the Browns can find a way around that contract and cut him and not have to give him the money, that's going to be the tough part for him. That'll be insult to injury if somehow the NFL looks into this and like, yep, you guys are clear. You can cut him. You don't have to pay him. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about starting for the Browns. Maybe a ailing team like the Dolphins that needs a quarterback. So,
yeah, I think the only way the Browns could escape the cap ramifications are the legal side of it. Like if there was some kind of legal,
they said if the last couple of people that disclosed, if it wasn't listed, then they can opt out. But I know he's already settled with like 2 or 3 of them already. So clearly they were probably already in that deal.
Yeah, I mean Browns and Stefanski are in a ton of trouble with that. I mean, I'm seeing 172 million in dead money if next year. Like they can't get out from that contract until it's done, which they got 2 years after this to still pay him. So that's my answer is I do not think he will be a starter with his next team. I don't think he starts again with the Browns. I just think they'll find another solution. They'll find someone in the draft. And I think that wherever he ends up next, he'll be a backup to start.
Well, that'll do it for today. I'm Ron Johnson and Sam Ekstrom. Next week, it'll be Vikings Rams. We'll talk about that game and what happened there. Hopefully it's a win. And also Gophers Maryland homecoming. Hopefully I should have some homecoming festivity videos to share with you guys on the show. I'm Ron Johnson, Sam Ekstrom, and thank you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Sports Minnesota to get all of our shows all the time around the clock. But also you get our postcast after every single Vikings, Wild, Wolves, and Timberwolves game because basketball is coming. Again, have a great weekend, people, or a great week.